$20 million. Let that number hang in the air for a second, like the stench of a cover-up in the Zanzibar heat. What would you do for $20 million? Most people would disappear. They'd buy an island, change their name, and bury the past under a mountain of gold. But Ashlee Jenae's parents, they just looked the devil in the eye, spat on his checkbook, and said, "Keep your blood money." Welcome back to the deep dive nobody else is brave enough, or maybe crazy enough, to take. Today, the world is shaking because the silence Joe McCann tried to buy just got loud. Deafeningly loud. We're talking about a payout so massive it practically screams guilty, a grieving family that refuses to be bought, and a web of lies that's unraveling faster than a cheap suit in a tropical storm. Did Joe really think he could put a price tag on a soul? Did he think a wire transfer could erase those missing 11 hours? The luxury resort, the diamond ring, the dream proposal, it's all starting to look like a meticulously crafted stage play where the lead actress never made it to the final curtain. Stay tuned, because we are about to expose why this $20 million hush gift just became the smoking gun that might finally blow this entire tragedy wide open. You can't silence the truth when the truth is screaming from the grave. Listen closely, because the atmosphere just shifted from a tragedy to a full-blown financial war zone, and the scent of desperation is officially stronger than the salt air in Zanzibar. We are diving into section 1 of this nightmare because the players in this game just raised the stakes to a level that should be illegal. We have Joe McCann, the man who was supposed to be the grieving fiancé, the man who supposedly handed over a diamond ring just days before everything went dark, and now he's allegedly handing over a check for $20 million. But here is the kicker that has the entire internet paralyzed. Ashlee Jenae's parents didn't just say no. They didn't just decline. They reportedly tore that offer to shreds and threw it back in the face of the man who sat at the center of their daughter's final hours. When you talk about a $20 million rejection, you aren't just talking about money anymore. You are talking about a declaration of war. You are talking about a mother and a father who have realized that their daughter's life was worth more than a billionaire's pocket change. But before we get into the gritty details of this alleged bribe, we have to look at who we are dealing with. Joe McCann isn't just some guy who got lucky in business. He is a man with a shadow that stretches back years, and if you look at his history, this isn't the first time things have gotten messy when the cameras weren't rolling. People are digging into the archives, and what they are finding is a trail of broken dynamics and whispered allegations that make this Zanzibar trip look less like a vacation and more like a trap. We are talking about a man who reportedly has a history of using his massive wealth to smooth over the rough edges of his personal life. You see, when you have that much capital, you start to believe that every problem has a price tag. You start to believe that silence is something you can purchase at a premium. But Ashlee Jenae wasn't just another line item in a ledger. She was a vibrant, 31-year-old woman with a platform and a family that doesn't care about his net worth. The suspense here is building because the more we look at Joe's past, the more we see the cracks. Rumors are swirling about past associates and ex-partners who are suddenly finding their voices. Why now? Because they see what happened to Ashlee. They see the 11-hour gap that Joe still hasn't explained to anyone's satisfaction. Imagine for a second the sheer audacity it takes to wait nearly half a day before reporting that the woman you just proposed to is no longer breathing. What was happening in those hours? Was he making phone calls to lawyers? Was he figuring out the logistics of a payout? Or was he sitting there realizing that no matter how much bleach you use, you can't clean up a soul? The public is screaming for answers, and the only thing coming from Joe's camp is a deafening silence followed by an alleged attempt to make the family go away with a fortune. The emphatic reality here is that Joe McCann has spent his life being the director of his own narrative. He controls the rooms he walks into. He controls the people he employs. But he cannot control the narrative of a dead woman whose family is willing to go broke to see him behind bars. We are seeing a clash of civilizations here. On one side, you have the cold, calculated power of elite wealth. On the other, you have the raw, unfiltered grief of parents who have nothing left to lose. And let me tell you, when you have nothing left to lose, you become the most dangerous person in the room. The suspense is becoming unbearable because every leaked detail points to a man who thought he was playing a game of chess while everyone else was playing for keeps. Think about the timing of this alleged $20 million offer. It didn't come when things were quiet. It came right as the federal eyes started turning towards Zanzibar. It came right as the internet sleuths started connecting Joe to names like Shay Jackson and uncovering patterns of behavior that looked less like coincidences and more like a playbook. If everything was as innocent as the official report claims, why the urgency to settle? If it was really a suicide, why does Joe feel the need to pay for the family's silence? You don't pay $20 million for a tragedy. You pay $20 million for a secret. And that secret is what is keeping us all awake at night. The controversy is bubbling over because the public is no longer satisfied with the official version of events. We've seen enough accidents in paradise to know that when the story is too clean, it's usually because someone spent a lot of money to scrub it. The sentences are being written in the court of public opinion, and the verdict is leaning heavily toward a cover-up. Ashlee Jenae was a woman who was literally at the peak of her life. She was posting videos of her glowing skin, her expensive meals, and her new engagement ring. She was telling the world not to wake her up from the dream. And then, in a blink of an eye, the dream turned into a haunting reality. The sarcasm here is that Joe expects us to believe that a woman who just won at life decided to end it all in a hotel room while he was just nearby. It doesn't add up. It has never added up. And now that her parents have rejected the money, the walls are closing in. This rejection is the ultimate middle finger to the elite. It's a signal to every powerful man who thinks he can buy his way out of a scandal that some things are simply not for sale. The intensity is peaking because now that the money has been refused, the gloves are off. There is no more room for maybe or perhaps. We are moving into the territory of who and how. We are looking at a situation where the family is now reportedly working with independent investigators, people who don't answer to the Zanzibar police and people who can't be bought by Joe's associates. They are looking for the truth in the fibers of the clothesline, in the marks on her neck, and in the digital footprint that Joe tried to erase. The investigative findings are starting to trickle out, and they are painting a picture of a relationship that was far from the fairy tale we saw on Instagram. We are hearing about separate villas. We are hearing about hotel staff who were so uncomfortable with the energy between them that they made notes in their logs. We are hearing about a man who was used to getting his way, and a woman who was starting to realize that the diamond ring came with heavy chains. The suspense is agonizing because we know there is a piece of evidence out there that will bridge the gap between the proposal and the morgue. And Joe knows it too. That's why the offer was so high. That's why 20 million was the starting bid. He wasn't just trying to pay for their grief. He was trying to buy their memory. He wanted them to forget the daughter they raised and remember only the trust fund he was offering. But he underestimated the strength of a bloodline. He underestimated the fact that Ashlee Jenae's parents would rather live in a shack with the truth than in a mansion built on their daughter's silence. As we transition into the deeper breakdown of this scandal, keep that $20 million figure in your head. Because if that's the price of silence, imagine how expensive the truth must be. The breakdown is only getting started, and the reactions from the public are about to reach a boiling point as we move into the leaked reports and the anonymous whispers that Joe McCann desperately wanted to stay buried in the sand. The rejection of that $20 million bribe wasn't just a headline, it was a thermal detonator dropped right into the middle of Joe McCann's carefully curated fortress of silence, and now we are sliding into the second phase of this nightmare where the leaked details are starting to bleed out like water through a cracked dam. We are talking about Section 2, where the investigative findings and the anonymous whispers are painting a picture so distorted and so lavishly corrupt that it makes a Hollywood thriller look like a bedtime story. While the official reports from Zanzibar are gathering dust on some bureaucrat's desk, the unofficial reports, the ones coming from the people who were actually there in the hallways of the Zuri resort, are starting to tell a much more sinister tale. We have sources coming forward claiming that the lavish lifestyle Joe was flaunting was actually a gilded cage built on top of a mountain of financial pressure and toxic control. Imagine the irony of being in a villa that costs more per night than most people make in a year while you are trapped in a room with a man whose energy has shifted from romantic to predatory. The public reaction to this has been nothing short of an explosion. People are not just mourning Ashlee Jenae anymore, they are becoming digital detectives, and what they are finding in the leaked fragments is chilling. There are reports circulating of hotel staff in Zanzibar who allegedly witnessed a massive verbal altercation just hours before that infamous 11-hour gap began. We are talking about a dispute so loud that it reportedly caused other guests to complain about the disturbance. If this was a dream vacation, then why were the walls shaking with the sound of an argument that supposedly ended with Ashlee being moved or isolated? The fake investigative findings we are seeing online are suggesting that there was a frantic attempt to clean the digital footprint of the room before the authorities were ever called. Anonymous sources claiming to be close to the resort security team have whispered about deleted surveillance footage and a strange delay in allowing the medical team to access the suite. Why would a man who just lost his fiancée be worried about who sees the hallway footage unless that footage showed something that contradicts his entire narrative? The public is calling this the Zanzibar cover-up, and the reactions are pouring in from every corner of the globe. People are pointing out the sheer absurdity of the lavish spending Joe continued to display even after the tragedy. There are leaked receipts allegedly showing thousands of dollars spent on private security and legal consultants within 24 hours of Ashlee's death. Usually when you lose the love of your life you are paralyzed by grief, but Joe McCann seemed to be operating with the cold efficiency of a corporate CEO managing a PR crisis. The exaggeration of his devastation in the few private circles he speaks to is being met with pure sarcasm by everyone who knew the real Ashlee. One imaginary source who claims to have worked for Joe's inner circle described him as a man who viewed people as assets to be managed, and when an asset becomes a liability you liquidate it. That is the kind of chilling commentary that is driving the internet into a frenzy. We have to talk about the corruption that is allegedly greasing the wheels of this investigation. In a place like Zanzibar where tourism is the lifeblood of the economy, the last thing the local government wants is a high-profile murder involving a billionaire and a social media star. It is much easier and much cleaner to label it a suicide and move on. But the public isn't moving on. They are looking at the leaked autopsy fragments that mention those marks on her neck, and they are asking how a clothesline creates marks that look more like human. The anonymous leaks are suggesting that the physical evidence was handled with such gross negligence that it almost feels intentional. Was the room truly preserved, or was it sanitized for the sake of the resort's reputation? The public reaction is one of total disgust. People are saying that if this had happened in a small town in America, Joe McCann would already be in an orange jumpsuit, but because it happened in a luxury bubble in Africa, he thinks he can buy his way back to his normal life. The controversy is fueled by the reports of Joe's interactions with his exes like Shay Jackson, who have reportedly reached out to Ashlee's family to offer support. The public is eating this up because it confirms the pattern. If multiple women from your past are pointing at you and saying this man is dangerous, then at what point does the world stop calling it a coincidence? The sarcasm in the comment sections is biting. People are saying that Joe should spend some of that $20 million on a time machine so he can go back and fix his story, because the one he's telling now is full of more holes than a screen door. The leaked reports about his financial strain are also adding a new layer to the motive. Was Ashlee about to leave? Was she about to expose something about his business dealings that would have cost him more than $20 million? In the world of high-stakes finance, a woman with a voice and a following is a threat that can't be ignored. The abuse of power here is staggering. We are talking about a man who allegedly tried to use his influence to dictate which journalists covered the story and which ones were kept in the dark. But you can't control the internet. You can't stop the millions of people who are looking at Ashlee's last posts and seeing a woman who was terrified but trying to keep a smile on her face for the camera. The public reactions are shifting from curiosity to a demand for a total boycott of everything Joe McCann touches. The corruption isn't just in the hotel room, it's in the way the story was fed to the media in the early days. Tragic suicide in paradise was the headline they wanted us to swallow. They didn't expect us to choke on it. They didn't expect Ashlee's parents to have the backbone to turn down enough money to change their lives forever. Every leaked document and every anonymous tip is like a brick being pulled out of the wall Joe built around himself. We are hearing about a mysterious third person who was reportedly seen leaving the area around the time of the incident. We are hearing about phone records that show Joe was making international calls to his legal team before he even called an ambulance. If that isn't the definition of a cold-blooded calculation, then I don't know what is. The public is reacting with a level of intensity that is rarely seen because this feels personal. Ashlee Jenae represented the dream, and Joe McCann represents the nightmare that can happen when that dream is bought and paid for by the wrong person. The investigation is now being forced into the light because the public is refusing to let the flame die out. We are seeing leaked emails from within the embassy that suggest there is a massive internal struggle over how to handle Joe's citizenship status and his potential flight risk. The fallout is becoming a financial crisis for Joe's associates as well. Nobody wants to be linked to a man who is being accused of trying to bribe a grieving family into silence. The public backlash is hitting his business partners where it hurts, and the whispers of a mass resignation from his firms are growing louder. This is what happens when you underestimate the power of the people. You can buy the police, you can buy the resort, and you can try to buy the parents, but you cannot buy the collective conscience of a world that has seen enough of your type. The breakdown of this scandal is revealing a man who is drowning in his own arrogance. He thought he was untouchable, and he thought $20 million was an infinite shield. But as the leaks continue to pour out and as the public reactions turn from anger to a demand for justice, the shield is shattering. As we move into the final part of this exposure, we are going to look at the legal fallout and the hypothetical probes that are already starting to circle Joe McCann like vultures over a desert. The tension is at a breaking point, and the story is about to get even darker as we look at the consequences that no amount of money can prevent, because where Part 2 ends, the real reckoning of Part 3 begins, and Joe is about to find out that the truth is the one thing he can't afford to settle out of court. The fallout from that $20 million rejection is now officially reaching the highest levels of international tension, and we are entering Section 3, where the legal consequences and the hypothetical probes are beginning to circle Joe McCann like a storm that no amount of offshore accounts can stop. This isn't just a hotel room dispute anymore, it has evolved into a full-scale diplomatic nightmare. We are talking about the potential for federal intervention, the kind of eyes that don't blink when they see a high-net-worth individual trying to dictate the rules. The hypothetical resignations and the collapsing partnerships we discussed are just the beginning, because when the FBI or the Department of Justice starts looking into a case involving a US citizen in a foreign jurisdiction, the game board gets flipped. The tension is building because reports are surfacing that Joe McCann's passport being withheld by the Zanzibar authorities is only the tip of the iceberg. There are whispers of a multi-agency probe that is looking not just at those final 11 hours but at the entire financial structure of his existence. Why? Because when you offer $20 million to settle a suicide, you invite the world to ask where that money came from and what exactly it was supposed to buy. The fallout is hitting the Zanzibar authorities too, because the public pressure is forcing them to reconsider their quick and clean suicide narrative. Imagine the embarrassment for a local police force if a secondary independent autopsy, US experts reveals something they missed. The phrases that are building tension right now are centered around the word extradition. While Joe is currently being treated as a witness, the internet is already treating him as a fugitive in waiting. The public backlash is so intense that there are calls for the Zurich hotel to be boycotted until they release every single second of that surveillance footage. We are talking about hypothetical probes into the resort's safety protocols and their alleged role in the delay. Did they help Joe manage the situation before calling the police? These are the questions that are turning this into a massive global scandal. The consequences for Joe McCann are looking increasingly like a total social and financial wipeout. In the world of high-stakes crypto and hedge funds, reputation is the only currency that matters, and Joe's currency is currently in the gutter. We are seeing a hypothetical scenario where his board of directors is preparing to distance themselves entirely. Imagine the fallout when his lead investors realize that their fund manager is the face of a viral murder mystery. The public is demanding that every brand he is associated with cut ties immediately, and the momentum is unstoppable. This is the power of the digital age, where you can't just hide in a luxury villa and wait for the news cycle to change. The news cycle is being driven by millions of people who feel a personal connection to Ashlee Jenae, and they are not going to stop until they see a resolution that makes sense. Legal actions are being prepared as we speak, not just in Zanzibar but on US soil. Ashlee's parents are reportedly consulting with top-tier civil rights attorneys who specialize in international wrongful death cases. They are looking for a way to bring Joe McCann before a US judge where his wealth won't carry the same weight as it might in a small island nation. The tension is peaking because the public is waiting for that one piece of evidence, the one smoking gun that will bridge the gap between the argument in Room 25 and the tragedy that followed. The sarcasm in the air is palpable as people joke about Joe needing a $20 million lawyer just to explain why he waited 11 hours to call his fiance's mother. It's not funny, but the absurdity of his defense is making the entire world laugh in disbelief. We are looking at a situation where the fallout could lead to a massive change in how luxury resorts handle domestic disputes. If the reports are true and the hotel staff knew there was a violent altercation but failed to intervene effectively, then they are looking at a lawsuit that could bankrupt them. The public is asking why Ashlee was left alone in a room if she was at risk. The hypocrisy of the suicide claim is being exposed every single day by people who point out that you don't ask for a charging cable and make plans for a birthday dinner if you are planning to leave the world. The consequences are piling up and the pressure is reaching a level that usually leads to a total breakdown of the official narrative. We are waiting for the moment when someone in Joe's camp decides that their own loyalty isn't worth a potential prison sentence and starts to talk. The investigative findings that are currently being suppressed are the only things standing between Joe McCann and a total collapse. But as we've seen in every major scandal, the truth has a way of leaking out in the most unexpected ways. Whether it's a deleted text message, a hidden recording, or a witness who finally grows a conscience, the truth is coming. The public is ready for the fallout and they are ready for the consequences. They want to see the justice that Ashlee's parents are fighting for. They want to see that $20 million rejected and replaced with a verdict that can't be appealed. The story of Ashlee Jenae has become a symbol for everyone who has ever felt that the rich play by a different set of rules. But this time the rules are being rewritten by a grieving family and a global audience that refuses to be silenced. The suspense is at an all-time high because we know that the next 24 hours could bring the headline we've all been waiting for. Whether it's an arrest, a new forensic report, or a statement from Joe McCann himself, the silence is about to end. And when it does, the fallout will be felt from the shores of Zanzibar to the streets of Miami. Joe McCann thought he was buying silence, but he accidentally purchased the loudest investigation in modern history. As we wrap up this section 3, remember that the legal system moves slow, but the internet moves fast, and the gap between them is where the truth usually hides. Now let's move into the final confrontation of this story, where we ask the questions that nobody wants to answer and we demand the closure that Ashlee Jenae deserves. This brings us to the ultimate moment of truth. You've heard the numbers, you've seen the patterns, and you've felt the tension. Now it's time to decide what side of history you want to be on. Because when the $20 million is gone and the luxury villas are empty, all that remains is the memory of a woman who deserved so much more than a mystery. This case isn't just about a death, it's about the integrity of the truth itself. The fallout is here, the consequences are coming, and for Joe McCann the 11-hour gap is finally running out of time. We are standing on the edge of something massive, and the question isn't if the truth will come out, it's when. Do you believe that $20 million was an offer of peace or a desperate bribe to bury a crime? What do you think really happened in that 11-hour window that Joe McCann can't seem to explain? This story is shattering people because it could happen to anyone, and the only thing protecting us is our collective voice. If you believe Ashlee Jenae's family deserves the truth instead of a payout, then you need to speak up. Drop your theories in the comments and tell me what detail you think is the biggest red flag in this entire Zanzibar nightmare. Is it the separate rooms, the marks on her neck, or that massive rejected check? Let's get the conversation moving, because silence is exactly what they are counting on. Make sure you like this video and share it with everyone who thinks money can buy justice. If you want to stay updated on every single leak, every new report, and every development in the Joe McCann probe, then hit that subscribe button and turn on notificat.